Good morning. This is Steve Onsman, pastor of Calvary United Church of Christ in Reading, Pennsylvania. Um, and this is the Wednesday Word. I haven't done one in a little while because I haven't had any questions sent to me, but I finally got one. So happy about that. If you want to send one to me, you can message me on Facebook or send it to me at hnsman Onsman at Comcast.net, and I will do my best. Um, so I invite you to send me those challenging biblical and theological questions. I'll try to do it in under 7 minutes. Here's the question from my friend Elliot Werner, sends me great questions. In Romans, Paul says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, will you be saved? This seems like a pretty minimal requirement compared to what most churches demand of their members. Is there any more that is required? As usual, Elliot gives me a really tough question. I appreciate it so much. It's a controversial concept still, isn't it? Because we do have this the challenge and struggle around how you're saved or get to heaven, or it was central to some of the questions of the Protestant Reformation, for example. But it's always been a question as to, is it your faith, is it your works, what is it? Obviously, it's to me, it's always in the middle, but um, that's the Buddhist to me. So on the one hand, we have rules that we have to follow, right? We have the scriptures, and Jesus gives rules about love and other things. But then on the other, nobody can meet all those requirements of the law, and that was Paul's argument. So we have grace. So this reliance on grace comes from the Apostle Paul's own struggle with the people in the movement in the first century during his life. There were those who still saw themselves as Jewish, and they wanted the Gentile believers to be circumcised, thus fulfilling the law. Uh, the covenant of Abraham. Followers of Jesus at that time were seen as another Jewish sect, believing they had found the Messiah. So it made sense to follow all the physical and dietary rules. Paul dealt with this in almost every church setting, and he wrote about it in almost every letter. It only appears once in the Gospels, actually, the idea of the question of circumcision, for example. Um, Paul wasn't saying that we shouldn't do good works. What he was saying was that the outward requirements of their former faith, as he came to understand it, um, were stumbling blocks to some people to be fully part engaged in the church. Um, Theologically, this was a statement also, I think, about women because women couldn't be circumcised, they couldn't fully be engaged. So, I mean, that's my particular belief. There's so much more about women and Paul that could be talked about. Um, Practically, though, it seems obvious to me, at least, that getting men to be circumcised would be a tough sell. So, what about Jesus? It again, it's obvious to me that Jesus believed that you had to do works to be saved. It's on again and again, bearing good fruit. Um, Matthew 25, for example, the sheep and the goats. It is my favorite section of scripture because it really it's about the church. Both the sheep and the goats are part of the church. Why? How do we know that? Because both groups call him Lord, so you know that they're connected. Um, and those who did not help the least of these, didn't clothe and feed and visit in prison and all that, they're cast out into the fire. Uh, that's another thing I have to deal with someday. The writer of James also speaks about this, that faith without works is dead. He wrote that you can't tell someone to be fully and bless them and if they're hungry, right? You got to feed them. You can't just say it, you got to do it. So dead faith is no faith. And the only way to bring it back is to be resurrected. I mean, that's really, I think, part of the message. So it seems to me that it makes sense that people who say they believe then do what they believe. And if you don't do, if it's all about selfishness, if it's all about you and your personal relationship with Jesus, that's the beginning, right? But it's not the ending. It's not the middle. It's an immature, or not immature, but a beginning part of faith. For those who go beyond that, they recognize as they mature in their faith that you can't just take, you have to give. And so we love others because God has loved us, right? That's the message. Luckily, ultimately, it isn't up to me or anyone else to decide who is welcome in heaven. And as Eliot often used to say when he was active in the church, the job of judge is already taken. I think it's clear, though, that we really make our chances um, better if we lead lives that are about generosity, not self-centeredness, not uncaring about people's needs. So if we say we're Christians and yet we think we shouldn't have things to help children, for example, or make education really good, we are not living up to our belief. It's not that we make the church a Christian place, or I mean, America a Christian place. The church should always be a Christian place. It means that we, in our faith, think of others before ourselves. All right, love God, love neighbor, love self. Um, I think that erring on the side of generosity, and I wrote about this again today in my thought. If you want to check that out, uh, if we err on the side of generosity, it's a win-win situation. Well, that's all I have for today. What do you think? You can respond if you'd like. If you have a comment, question, send it to me. I will do a Wednesday word on your question if you would like. It can be anonymous. You just say so. Uh, have a great day. Still, please. There's two new variants out there. Be careful out there. The pandemic is not over. Wash your hands, wear your mask, keep distance, and get vaccinated if you're physically able to. Please have a wonderful day. Peace.